And now to introduce you to tonight's host and guests. Meredith Goad has the best job in Maine. Maine has a crazy appetite for food stories, and it's Meredith's job to satisfy those cravings with juicy tales from chefs, food producers, locals' farms, and the state's award-winning restaurant scene. Her work appears especially in Sunday's Food and Dining section. Meredith holds a Bachelor of Science in Wildlife Biology from Colorado State and has a Master's in Journalism from the University of Missouri. Meredith lives in Portland, but spends much of her time off in her home state of Tennessee. Joining Meredith tonight are Mike Wiley, the co-owner of Big Tree Hospitality, which includes Honey Paw, Hugo's, and Eventide here in Portland. Jay Villani, who's the co-owner of Salvage Barbecue, Local 188, and Black Cow. Rebecca Charles, the owner of Pearl Kennebunk, and Alec Sabina, the co-owner of Hot Suppa. So please welcome to the Zoom stage, Meredith, Mike, Jay, Rebecca, and Alec. All yours.
Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. I hope you're all enjoying some nice takeout from your favorite local restaurant and a cocktail to go while you're watching. This time is going to go by really fast, so I'm just going to jump right in there and sort of start us off with a broad brush and then maybe start digging a little deeper later. The first thing I'd like our panelists to address is what do you think have been your top 2 or 3 challenges during the pandemic? Is it paying rent, the regulations you have to follow? Do you have enough staffing? Are people showing up again to eat now that you're reopened? Let's just sort of hear a little bit about what some of the challenges that everyone's facing. Do you want to start us off, Mike, and then others can jump in?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Meredith. Yeah. Where to start? I mean, the list of challenges is long and extensive. I would say that for us, probably the biggest 2 have been squaring kind of state and federal recommendations about safety protocols with what we and our staff feel like are the most important things that we need to be doing and focusing in on in order to keep both ourselves, our staff, as well as our guests safe. And then beyond that, just staffing, finding people to work, finding people who are excited about coming into work and, you know, accepting what this new normal is. I'd say those have been the two hardest things for us to navigate.
Okay. How about you, Rebecca?
Well, I applied for PPP federal loans for both restaurants in Maine and in New York and received the funds. But up here, because those loans were based on payroll from the previous year, we didn't get all that much. So by the time we reopened in, I think it was end of May, early June, if I remember right, there really wasn't much left. And getting a restaurant open after being closed for many months is financially challenging, particularly independent restaurants. I mean, we don't have capital reserves like a lot of the corporations do with many locations. And often I think wind up funding those kinds of reopenings with personal savings. So that's tough. And how all that forgiveness stuff is going to work out is anybody's guess. They changed, they changed the rules so many times that it's going to be difficult to figure out when it finally comes to applying for that forgiveness, which has to be done. But the other thing I think that was really difficult was getting people back to work. I think that's the top of the list for me. We always have staff problems. We're in Kennebunk Lower Village, which is adjacent to Kennebunk Port. So it's a resort town mentality. And, people that work in these towns tend to not be able to live in them. They have to live in Wells or Biddeford or somewhere where the cost of living is a little less. So that's always a problem every season. But this year, getting people back to work, and remember the PPP loan was meant to get our employees back to work and get them off unemployment. That was the reason for it. Well, how do you get people off unemployment when they're making more on unemployment than they ever did when they were working? So, you know, the federal government had us between a rock and a hard place. They gave us this money to get people back, but nobody would come back. So it really has only been in the last few weeks that we started to get resumes again. As time grew closer to that July 26th date, when the cutoff of that extra $600 in unemployment was going to happen, we really didn't see resumes of any kind. And I was working with a sous chef, just the two of us. We opened really with just the two of us. Even now, the higher paying jobs are more easily filled, but the lower paying jobs, you know, prep people, line cooks, things like that, having a very difficult time filling those positions. And people are coming into town now, because now that they're allowed to at least travel around locally, the numbers are going up, but we're having a difficult time getting the meals out. There's just not enough hands.
Jay and Alec, are you guys also having staffing issues? And I'm wondering what it looks like compared to last year, and how much of it is that extra $600 from the government, and how much of it is people are afraid to come back because they don't want to catch the virus?
You know, I've always said that the restaurant business was hard enough with customers. You know, now that you're doing it with a fraction of the customers, it's even more difficult. You know, there's definitely, you know, I'm all for people making a fair wage and living, right? There's, you know, I'm not belittling anyone from taking advantage of any program that the government felt was necessary to keep people, you know, buoyed economically. You know, it just shows the problems that already exist, you know, inherently in the system that we have set up. You know, good paying jobs in restaurants are hard to come by. You know, there's a fraction of people who make a decent living doing it, you know, and those are the people you kind of hold close to you. And then there's the low paying jobs, you know, and I think once we start bringing all those lower wage jobs up and start leveling the field for everyone in a restaurant, you know, it's going to be much better. But until that happens, you know, it's going to be tough. You know, I do think that people were taking it, you know, not taking advantage, but, you know, if I was making that much money, I would be hesitant to go back to work myself. You know, I think the biggest stress for me right now is realizing that I have gotten the PPP money. I have gotten, you know, the economic disaster loan money, you know, but I'm also back in debt after 20 years of, you know, busting my ass to get out of debt and being so close. Like my window is like, oh, I've got maybe 5-6 years left doing this, and I'm in a good position, you know, and now I've just re-upped for another 20 years. And I don't think I have that in me, you know, and that's the biggest anxiety that I'm dealing with at the moment, is just knowing that, you know, I've spent 20 years building a company, and now it took 5 months to absolutely raise, you know, so, you know, those stresses that come along with trying to staff. And I think the staffing is the biggest issue too. It's hard to find people to come back to work, you know, and I get it, I understand it, you know, I mean, I'm working harder now than I have in a long time. And, you know, it's just because I have to do it because no one else wants to, you know, I'm cooking and I'm washing dishes, and I'm a 54-year-old man, you know, and it's just, I just don't have the backbone for that anymore, you know. So where this is going, I have no idea. I know that, you know, with my personal experience right now, with the 3 restaurants that I have a myriad of landlords that I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a landlord who really doesn't care. I'm working with a landlord who's willing to work with me, and I'm working with one who is like the salt of the earth. So, you know, I've dubbed it the Corona coaster. You know, I have these really highs where I'm feeling good about where we're at, and then I hit those lows where it's like, this just isn't going to work. You know, so I really think we need to push some sort of that restaurant act I've been reading about. You know, I really hope that comes to fruition. I hope it's not just a fantasy. You know, I've read things today about a second bailout for airlines. It's like, how about the first bailout for independent restaurants? You know, but you know,
Yeah, for
call me.
people who don't know, the Restaurant Act is a $120 billion fund. It's going to give small grants to restaurants to pay for payroll, benefits, mortgage, rent, protective equipment, food, all kinds of costs. And it's supposed to be, last I heard it, they were thinking about introducing it sometime this week. I don't know.
I hope it comes to fruition. You know, I think it's, you know, it might be a fantasy, you know, but hopefully it'll come, you know, to be. What about you, Alec? How would I pass the torch over to you, Alec?
Thank you. I guess we haven't had we had a lot of staff return to the restaurant, but we also made the choice when we reopened to not reopen for dinner right away and to sort of dip our toe into the water. So we were able to pull a little bit of staff that would normally work the nighttime into the day shift. And so that worked out well for that. We did have a few staff members that decided not to come back. And I think, you know, one of our biggest challenges being a small restaurant that, you know, is currently doing breakfast, lunch, brunch, is that we've lost a lot of our efficiencies. You know, you feel like for the last 15 years, you're kind of tuning up a sports car and making that kind of do everything it can to make the business run as efficient as possible. And now it feels like we're sort of relegated to a golf cart with a lot of speed bumps. So, you know, that's probably been our biggest hurdle, is to know that we have business, you know, waiting out on the sidewalk, but we just can't bring them in. And, you know, we want to be able to, you know, give the experience to our guests, and we're just, you know, at a, you know, we're just a regulation type thing right now. And but all in all, we're fortunate to be, you know, having business and, you know, hoping that the state continues to progress in a positive direction.
Alec, can you talk a little bit about how you guys have changed things so that, and what diners will see when they come in? From what I've read, what I've heard from a restaurant critic, actually, who spoke with your brother, I think, about this, that you move the host stand outdoors, and the staff communicates with walkie-talkies, and that's the first I've heard of walkie-talkies being used. Can you kind of talk a little bit about why you've reconfigured things the way you have?
Sure. So our patio is in the rear of the restaurant, and it's quite a ways away from the entryway. So we wanted to have the host outside, you know, especially in the warm weather, where guests aren't having to go in and out of the building other than really to use the restroom. If they're eating outdoors. And so, you know, we put the walkie-talkies in so that the host can communicate with the server in the rear to be able to know when tables available, how long things are anticipated, so that we have that presence at the host stand out front all the time. You know, because you know, we tried to do a remote wait list, and it didn't work that well. A lot of the guests were confused about, you know, exactly how it was working. And so that was a little frustrating. So we are using a wait list app now, but it's come in person, put your name on, and then we text the guests when their table's ready. So that's, you know, it's been different. We've had, you know, the first couple of weeks we had to, you know, wade in the water, see how it went, make adjustments, and we continued to make adjustments. And, you know, that's what we're doing right now.
Okay. Have you had trouble like getting diners to go where they need to be, or was part of that host stand so that they wouldn't be marching through the restaurant? And
Yeah,
I'm just wondering how much policing you've had to do.
I guess it does act as a catch-all. You know, when you show up, it's you know, you check in with the host whether you're picking up takeout or you want to put your name on the list or what it is. So I think it's helpful for the guests to be able to have a person outside that, you know, they have contact with, and they're not, you know, some people don't really want to go inside, you know, they don't want to be using doors and things like that. So I think that helps hopefully make people feel a little bit more comfortable.
I'm wondering how outdoor dining is doing compared with indoor dining, and are people coming back like you thought they would? Are you booking up, or are there still a lot of empty seats? I'll take an answer from anybody.
I don't think really there are empty seats because there aren't that many seats.
Exactly.
Or there's a lot of empty seats, but not on purpose, right?
Exactly. I mean,
A lot of empty seats inside.
people do want to come back, and you know, particularly in Kennebunk Port area, the locals are dying to go out to dinner, but they do want to sit outside. There aren't a lot of people that, even in our very large dining room with very high 20-foot gabled ceilings, and we follow the guidance protocols to the letter, they feel like inside they are more at risk somehow than outside. You know, they are coming back. We just can't take enough of them. We don't have the staff for it, and we don't have the seating capacity to do as many as we were, for instance, maybe last year. So, you know, I hesitate to think what's going to happen when the weather changes, and all we have is indoor dining. I think all of us were so focused on getting our restaurants reopened, and that was the big hurdle. That was the challenge. But now that we're open and we're operating, and we see, you know, what some of the pitfalls are, the reduced seating, the reduced number of days even in our schedule. We're only open 4 days a week. How much can you do? But now that we're open, the next step is to kind of look down the road. What is this going to bring in the fall into the winter? How are we going to go on from here? I don't see it as sustainable for a number of reasons. Up here, I'm in a resort area, and the tourists are here for the nice weather and the beach, and they'll be pretty much gone in October like they usually are, I think. In New York, it's going to be terrifying. I have a very small restaurant, and when we can no longer serve outside, I don't think it's sustainable. I really don't. But I'm going to go through it and put one foot in front of the other and keep marching towards that goal, even though in the back of my mind, without even touching a calculator, I know that it's not sustainable. And that's where hopefully other government support, financial support, will come in so that we can have another wave of financial support, or many of us will have to close. I mean, so many of us have closed already. I mean, as far as the independent restaurant, the writing was on the wall before this ever happened. But this has just advanced the demise of the independent restaurant. It's just too hard to survive in this kind of climate when there's nothing to look forward to. As far as, I mean, there've been some silver linings that I never thought we'd do this much takeout up here. I was shocked. And that's great. That's been a real help to the bottom line. That we're doing, you know, anywhere from 8 to 16 or so takeouts a night. That's really helped a lot. I don't see how that's going to get us through a winter, though.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I want to come back to the winter question because that's a big one that a lot of our readers had as well. But a lot of you have tried doing, you know, the curbside takeout. There's a lot of new takeout windows around town. You're doing cocktails to go. You're doing Jay and Mike, your restaurants have both tried selling groceries or other food products to sort of prop up the bottom line. I was wondering, maybe Jay and Mike, you could address this first, is like how helpful have those additions been to keeping you afloat, and are there any that you see keeping going forward that have been, you know, worthwhile enough that you want to hang on to them? The cocktails to go or selling farm products?
Well, anytime you can sell booze in the restaurant business is a good thing. You know, the groceries, I don't know whether or not it's kept us afloat or not, but it has kept us focused to a degree, which I think the mental aspect of it, of doing it, has been beneficial. Just having a purpose of just trying to get through what we're all trying to collectively get through and something else to focus on. I mean, retailing is nickel and diamond. You know, I mean, you got to do volume to make money at retail. You know, you got to do volume to make money at restaurants. You know, you need that bar business. You know, so nothing, you know, the 25 tables or the 16 tables that you might have outside aren't going to make up. You know, or the 6 to 8 pounds of greens that I'm selling, or the 3 to 6 chickens I'm selling, whole chickens I'm selling a week, you know, is it going to make up? Is it going to make up for that? I think it was more a mental, you know, exercise, just to say, okay, we got to pivot, you know, let's just keep focused. Let's fight through. In the beginning, it was great because not many other, you know, spots were doing it, but a lot of, you know, people have pivoted to it, and there's more, you know, taking away. And I also think as the warmer weather got, people got more comfortable going back to supermarkets. You know, it's like, why go to your local restaurant to buy stuff? You know, I mean, people go to Hannaford's, people go to the Rosemonts. I get it. You know, I mean, it's, you know, again, going back to the winter issue, you know, we are planning to let people in. You know, I mean, we're allowed. Firstly, I'm proud of our community for not letting people in at this moment. You know, I know there are a handful of places in town that are letting people in, you know, but, you know, the majority of us aren't. And I think that shows a real strength, even though we're hemorrhaging, you know, money at this point. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit anybody. We're losing money daily, you know, trying to stay afloat. But, you know, the inevitability is going to come where we're going to have to start letting people in, right? And I think for my company, you know, that inevitability is going to come after, what is it, the Labor Day holiday that's coming up. And I know, Rebecca, you know, depend on the tourists, but I'm kind of waiting for the tourists to go away before I open up my doors. You know, I'm going to check the infection rate and the hospitalization rate and make an educated guess there and see where we're at, you know, before I start letting people in. But the inevitability is we're going to have to let people in eventually, right? And I know it's scary, but we are girding our loins, so to speak, for that inevitability.
Yeah, I know you told me one time that there's nothing that can compare, you know, you can sell all the cocktails to go you want, but nothing can compare to someone sitting at the bar having a few martinis.
You just can't, you're not going to do it. You know what I mean? Because eventually that person's going to order a bite or a dessert, you know, and it's like fishing. You throw it out there, you lure, and you're reeling them in, you know, and you're giving them an experience, and they, you know, they're paying for that experience, and hopefully they enjoy themselves and come back. But, you know, it's just retailing at this point in a restaurant, it's not really profitable.
Jay, you also mentioned, you know, infection rates and being worried about letting people inside. I know yours was one of the restaurants you had an employee test positive, and you mentioned earlier the difficulty of closing down and opening up and closing down and opening up. I'm wondering how big a hit that was for you when you admirably closed for a couple of weeks voluntarily, I think, to.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that whole experiment kind of opened my eyes. It opened my eyes up, you know, to be transparent with people with this stuff, because it's going to happen, you know. I was shocked to find the lack of guidance there was in relation to our, right, Mike? You know,
Oh, yeah.
talking about,
Yeah, Mike had the
yeah,
same
you know,
situation.
with what we're going through, that they implored us not to close down, which I thought was absolutely cuckoo, you know, in the beginning. You know, it's like, well, just send that person home, monitor them. You know, we felt it was the right thing for us to do, just because it was the first time we dealt with it, and my staff was just petrified. You know, I had one guy who was, which I considered patient zero, who was working next to the person who got infected. And when he came back negative, there was a big sigh of relief, you know, with it. But again, you know, moving forward, people, you know, but since then I've had several, you know, employees. Well, I'm not feeling good today. Well, don't come in. You know, I'm running a fever. You know, I got like 100. You know, I'm 99.9. Well, is that a fever? Well, just stay home today. You know what I mean? It's like. We've had that since, you know, and we've made sure people are healthy. You know, we do have a company-wide policy that if you feel like you need to get tested, please get tested, and I am going to cover the bill. I will cover it. I don't want anyone to feel like they're stranded or left alone with dealing with this. But the inevitability is that people are going to get sick, you know, and how we handle that is going to define us as an industry moving forward. Now, it's going to be impossible for restaurants to start and stop for 2 weeks at a clip. It's economically, it's not viable. It's not feasible, you know. So, you know, I think we got to have to work in tandem with what rules and regulations that we have in front of us, and monitor. And what we've doing, even though we have a limited staff at the moment, we are kind of potting people that certain groups are working with, you know, certain people are working together in teams. So like if an infection does come down the pike, right, we're going to be able to at least isolate 2-3 people and say, all right, you guys need to monitor and you know, and see what's going on, as opposed to like the whole restaurant is at risk.
Oh, that's interesting.
Again, not knowing how this thing works and transmits. I mean, every day you're hearing something different on how this, you know, virus transmits, you know, and it's like, I just read something the other day that 6 feet isn't even enough, that you need to be like 10 meters away. You know, it was some British study where they're recommending 10 meters, and 10 meters is a long, you know, that's like over 30 feet, for God's sakes. You know, how are you going to run a business where people can't stand within 30 feet of each other? I mean, it's just not possible, you know. So just wear your masks. Everyone just wear a mask, right? It's so simple at this point. You know, even in the restaurants, we just got people, you just got to wear your mask. And, you know, it's the first couple of weeks, me working behind the line, you know, I was absolutely livid. That I was just like, I can't believe I got to do this, you know, but I got, you know, you get used to it. You steel yourself to it. And now I don't even realize I'm wearing it, you know, when I'm working. So just for everyone, wear your masks in and out of public spaces.
Working on a hotline in a mask is extreme.
Oh, it's miserable. It's miserable.
I honestly, I kept pulling mine down because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know, you get overheated, because not only are you in a hot environment, you're over a stove, but as you exert yourself, you get hotter and hotter, and you're breathing in nothing but your own carbon dioxide. So at some point, your face is covered with sweat. You feel like you're going to faint because you're not getting any oxygen. I kept pulling my mask down. I was just wearing one of those hospital masks because they're lighter and cooler than the, you know, the
Right.
fabric masks. But one of the guys that I had working in my kitchen, and he was 6 feet away from me in another station, he actually said he felt uncomfortable because I kept pulling my mask down. So, and I thanked him for being honest enough to say that, because I realized how important it was to other people at that point.
Yeah.
That whether or not I felt I could breathe, I would just have to figure something out. So now, as soon as somebody else is in the kitchen, regardless of, even if they're in a station that's 6 or 8 feet away, I have my mask on. I keep it in my pocket while I'm alone. And as soon as other people start coming in, I put it on. But there are times when I have to leave, go out the back door and stand outside and just grab some air, because it's dreadful to have to wear one of those things in the kitchen. But it has to be done.
Do you all have someone designated to be the mask police for diners who come in and don't? Have you had a lot of people who don't want to wear it?
The door has to be the mask police.
Mm-hmm.
They can't come in to the restaurant or be seated without a mask on. And that's de rigueur everywhere.
Yeah, I feel like we've been lucky in that regards. I haven't ran into many issues with that. People have been very sympathetic to our plight. People have been very patient. You know, we asked them to put a mask on. It's like, oh shit, I left it in my car. Well, we have a box of disposable masks that, well, here, we're happy to give you one. You know, and they put it on. It hasn't really been an issue. So I'm lucky. You know, my biggest fear was that there was going to have to be a lot of de-escalation training with people on how to deal with people who were being ignorant about the mask issue. But to date, I feel very lucky that we haven't run into much of that, if any.
You see it happening everywhere, but I think from my perspective in my restaurant, and I know other people with restaurants around this area, people have been more or less happy to do it.
Yeah.
Not so much in the supermarkets and other places. Go to, you know, Market Basket or Home Depot or Ace Hardware. Some of those places where you can tell that they don't support wearing masks. Home Depot being kind of one of those places. But boy, they are now. The last time I went, there was a sign on the door saying you will not be allowed in without one. So where there was a, I don't want to say it's a learning curve, because you have to be an idiot to not think, to not understand how dangerous this thing is. But the learning curve I'm talking about is you've got to wear a mask when you're around other people. That's all there is to it. And if the store didn't have a policy in the beginning, everyone does now. Has to. I mean, even the president put on a mask finally after all this time. So, you know.
Yeah, it's even gotten to the point where.
If everybody had worn the masks from the beginning, we'd be in a lot better shape right now.
Well, I sure would.
Mike, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just saw on the Old Port a poster that said it had a picture of a face wearing a mask and then a coffin right next to it. And it said, mask it or casket. And I thought, okay, we're at the other end of it now. Now we're fear mongering. We're getting after it. That's great. Everybody wear a mask. Keep your distance.
Yeah.
That's all. And shop at Lowe's. Don't shop at Home Depot. Go to Lowe's. Go to the blue place. Don't go to the orange place for political reasons.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could address the whole, I know that your restaurants you're always crazy busy in the summer without outdoor dining. What is it going to look like for you in the fall? And maybe we could turn a little bit, because we're running out of time a little bit here before audience questions. What do you think the winter's going to look like? And I'm curious also, I want Mike to start, but I want to hear from all of you. Readers are really interested in what's going to happen in January. And how long can you guys last? Do you think Portland's restaurant scene is going to be, nothing compared to what it was before? Are we going to basically lose that part of our culture here? They say, a huge percentage nationwide of independent restaurants are probably going to go under. So I know our readers are really interested in hearing from your perspective what your crystal ball is for the winter. And also if you have any ideas about, I don't know, is this going to change restaurant design? Will you rely more on, will you have to change the way you serve food? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So go ahead, Mike. You start us off.
Well, yeah, thanks, Meredith. There's a lot there. I'll start with, I don't know. I think that what we're trying to do is, I don't know, to Jay's point about staying busy and staying focused. That's incredibly important. I mean, we could do a show of hands among national restaurateurs. How many of them got into the restaurant industry because they felt it was a good, safe, long-term bet? Crickets. Like, I don't know who's got great judgment and excellent foresight who decided to get involved in restaurants. I mean, it's already a really punishing industry. It's hard to make money. It's hard to stay in business. So I think that the point of differentiation is just going to be, how can you be responsible? How can you try to continue to innovate and do, interesting things? And how can you, continue to perform in whatever the food or hospitality space becomes the way that you did before, the way that your guests and customers appreciated you and your business. To Rebecca's point about, do we take out the calculator and start typing away? Because it gets very, very scary then. If we're just looking at the economics of it, like, it's very hard to hitch a smile on your face and say, yeah, come March 2021, we're going to be doing great. Like, it's very, very hard to say that. All that I really can say is that, I think things have changed fundamentally for the next 3 years, 4 years, God only knows how long. But for us, there have been a couple silver linings. I mean, that grocery leg of it, we built a commissary kitchen. We have a commissary kitchen down in Biddeford, and in that kitchen, our baking staff works, our pastry staff works. They make your soft serve at Honey Paw. They make your steam buns at Eventide. They would help out with petit fours and mignardises for Hugo's service. They made the boules for Hugo's service. And we just looked at all these people and all these resources and thought, geez, what can we do to, try to, extract value, keep them employed, just keep the lights on and keep people focused. And from that, we got our grocery program, and it's been great. We're so spoiled, for the last 5 years, 4 years, however many, we've, been able to gleefully buy whole halibut, huge fish, whole bluefin tuna. And, during the summertime, Hugo's, Eventide, the Honey Paw, Eventide Fenway, everybody has bluefin on their menus. Whether it's, the pectoral fin grilled whole after it's been cured in koji at the Honey Paw, or the, mainstay tuna crudo at Eventide, we've been able to spread that huge fish across 3 different properties. And now, we don't have Hugo's open anymore. So we're not, moving through as many large steaks and whatever we were getting from our beef program. But the grocery market has allowed us to open up to, my partner Andrew has been making chili crisp marinated whole halibut tails that we cook them sous vide, and then we sell them to folks, and they can pick them up through Big Tree Grocery, and all they have to do is, mark them on their grill outside or broil them at home, and they've got this epic feast where they can host their friends, or maybe just gluttonously consume it themselves. I don't know, but for us, the grocery thing it's been really, really great. But yeah, I know I'm totally evading your main question, Meredith, about what the winter holds. I don't know. All I can tell you is that, as a guy who was trained as a line cook, we're just kind of focusing on 10 tickets ahead of us, trying to do what we can to make sure that we are doing a great job with what's in our lap right now. And, I really earnestly hope that we see some help from either the federal government, our buddy Mitch McConnell, or the city of Portland. I mean, we have contributed a lot as restaurants in Portland to the growth of tourism, to, LL Bean with the flannel and the duck boots have been doing God's work, and I've certainly been reaping the rewards there. But I think that there's, there's room for the city to be helping us out a little bit. And I know that they have with restaurant street closures and allowing us to spill out into the street. But yeah, I don't know what the future is going to hold. All I know is that the best we can do is try to work hard and try to do, execute each task that's in front of us as best we can right now, and try to be honest with our customers and our staff.
Okay. We've got to turn to audience questions, but I want to give each of the other of you a quick, if you want to have anything you want to say really quickly about your predictions for the future, we'd love to hear it. Just keep it quick so we can get to audience questions. Anybody?
We don't know.
Sorry, my magic 8-ball is also broken. So I have no idea, but I would just echo what Mike said and just try to keep our eye on what's in front of us and try to be as adaptable as we can to what comes. And I think that's the general idea of running a restaurant, is you never know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis, but you just got to do your best. I'd say most businesses are like that, but and hopefully good things happen, and we'll all still be here, maybe doing a follow-up panel next August.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to go to audience questions now. If you have a question you'd like to submit, you can do it through the Q&A function. You don't have to do it through chat. And Strawberry, I'll let you take that.
All right, so one of the first questions we have are cocktails to go something that can be done going forward, or are there legal roadblocks?
Oh, I actually know the answer. There is a bill in the legislature to extend cocktails to go through next April, I think. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be a long-term thing, honestly. I mean, once you let that genie out of the bottle, how do you stuff it back in? I mean, it's now you're going to tell me I can't sell booze to go. So I think that's going to be around for quite some time.
We all hope so, right? Here's a question for Mike. With the street made one way, how is your outdoor dining working?
Outdoor dining's been great. The only challenge really has been I believe that July was the hottest month on record for the state of Maine. So we've been buying Gatorade and just reminding people. We have a sanitation officer who walks through the building and reminds people to wash their hands on the half hour, on the hour. They sanitize all, high touch surfaces. In addition to that, they're reminding everyone, drink water, please drink water, because, it was a full contact sport serving at Eventide before, and now with everything outside and all kinds of extra protocols that are absolutely necessary to keeping ourselves and our guests safe, it is an enormous amount of work. And the same is true with the honey paw. So it's been going great. I'll echo what Jay was saying, that we haven't encountered a whole lot of, call it poor citizen behavior. People have been doing really, really well. They've been playing by the rules and wearing masks. If they're seated, they don't have to. And yeah, it's been going well. It's been going well.
Mike, are your outdoor spaces canopied?
We have a handful of umbrellas. A gentleman in Wells built us these really awesome, super efficient picnic tables. And we provided some umbrellas, and then Hardshore Distillery has donated some umbrellas for us to use. But no, we do not have a big tent. And
There are these things called, I just wanted to tell you real quickly, I couldn't afford a tent either, and in New York, it's much hotter than it is here. It was well over 90 degrees a few days last week, but I went online and I found they're not tents, but they're canopies.
Huh.
So they're not nearly as expensive, and for $300, I got a 10-foot by 20-foot canopy that my sous chef put up in about an hour. And I think those are good options for restaurants like us.
yeah.
Send me the link, please.
Will do.
So our next question, I know we had a lot of attendees submit this question beforehand, but Maine's restaurants are an important part of the food economy by supporting local food producers, but these foods can have a higher price point. How has your ability to buy from local farms and fishermen been impacted? And can you see a way that it would be easier to spend those food dollars locally since those producers are suffering too?
I've personally found that it's much easier to source to what I would call, my philosophical and political ideals. Major meat processors are having a lot of trouble right now. It's been, that has been one silver lining for us, is that, a guy that we buy poultry from has had a better year. He's had a better, past 3 months than he's ever had before, because more and more, all of us are demanding local produce, local meats. So that has been, that's been a surprising outcome and a really welcome one.
Passing that cost on is the hard part, I've noticed. It's, everyone talks that talk, but walking that walk are two different things. It's especially even with the living wage issue, it's like the compression factor. A lot of people don't understand, and that comes a lot with local food and produce too, right? There's a compression factor. Well, if I'm paying X amount for this product, I got to charge X amount for that, the product that we're procuring, right? And then, people are just look at, oh, I can't pay this for that. And it's just like, well, I can't help you. So there are some impasses with that. I think people have, been a lot more understanding of the plight and know that restaurants are going through a tough time right now and are willing to pay the extra money, that they weren't previously. We've noticed a lot more that there are heavier tippers just recently than there were in the past, just because of people, understanding the plight of what our workers and our houses are going through. But the compression factor will settle in again, and it's on all levels, food. I was watching the news before I jumped on here, and, food across the board's going up, just the cost of food is just going up, and that's just a reality, so.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Jay. And I think it's only going to get scarier as the weather gets uglier. Because right now, at least, I feel like we're at least a little sheltered from that sticker shock, because people are thrilled to still be able to go out and dine at a restaurant they have a good memory of. But when that disappears, or when, seats become such a hot commodity, and, if you're doing 20% the business you were before, you need to charge so much more, then I see that spiraling out of control for all of us.
Yeah. The thought of a seasonal restaurant excites me, so to speak. I don't know if that excites my landlord as much, but as I said in the beginning of this, I always said, this wasn't quite the exit strategy I had in mind, a pandemic, but we'll get through it, and I think most of the people on this panel will get through it, we will persevere. And I think that's the grit of any restaurateur, is that all the hurdles and blocks that people tell you can't, and we always seem to do. That's just who we are as people. No one gets into this for the glory. I think it's more of a chip, at least it was for me as a kid. It's like, yeah, I could do this. You can't tell me I can't do it. I started off as a dishwasher at the age of 15 and just muckled my way to what you see before you, a fat guy in a fedora,
too.
But it's more of an FU type of mentality that I can do this and I will do this, then, it wasn't about a culinary statement for me. It was a way to just stop working for pricks, and that's why I opened up my own restaurant. I just got tired of working for nasty people, so, I look back on our original business plan, not to go off on a tangent, 20 years ago, and how utopian it was A, to leave an indelible mark on Portland, and B, was to be considered a good employer, and that was important to me 20 years ago. And it's even more important to me now during all this bullshit, is to make sure that I am still considered a decent employer and that I care about my staff, and I'm going to do things for that. I'm going to go out of my way for my staff, so hopefully that's resonating.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit unrelated, but how do you think oyster farmers are faring?
I'll take that one. They're doing,
That makes sense.
most of the ones that, I don't know, it's funny. It's hard because it's such a diverse group. I've talked to a handful who are doing, they're selling to outfits that, sell shellfish like gift boxes or kind of Blue Apron type things. And that's been going well for people. We have been buying oysters like it's going out of style. We've been really, really busy on the oyster front. Not the volumes that we were doing, for the past 3 years, but no, I mean, most of the oyster farmers that I talk to are doing okay. To my earlier point about, local ag, it's been okay. We've been able to, particularly with oysters, it's not like if you see an uptick in the amount of money people are asking for scallions, you might, drop your monocle into your snifter of brandy. Not so with oysters. It's already a luxury ingredient. People are already willing to pay a little bit more for it. So my impression is that oyster farmers are, probably not jumping up in the air and clicking their heels. None of us are, but they're staying afloat.
Thoughts on the 2-hour limit for seating like there is in Boston?
2 hours is too long.
I'll be happy if I get someone who wants to sit for 2 hours. Gosh.
Well, this brings up a question I wanted to ask you guys. I'm just going to jump in here. As someone who dines out as a single, I have for a long time, or I'm just with one other person. When you see a single diner come in or a pair and they maybe take up a whole picnic table, do you roll your eyes and think, oh, I wish they weren't here? Or are you just happy to have the customer?
Happy to have them.
Happy to have them.
I think
in New York, I have a lot of single diners, and it was one of the first sort of eating bars, 24 years ago. So we have a lot of single people that come in. And now that we don't have that option, and we have like deuces in the street, and again, only 20 seats, we have to reserve some of those tables for our regulars, single diners. Just have to. That's just the way it is. So you would never roll your eyes. You might feel a catch in your throat because you're going to make considerably less money, particularly if you have a number of them in an evening. But that's just the luck of the draw. They're our bread and butter, just like anybody else.
This is a question for Jay. We regularly get groceries from Grocer 188. I wonder how you decided to start a grocery service in addition to takeout, and how much that's helped keep you afloat, and how long do you anticipate that going? We love it, by the way.
Oh, you're too kind, whomever you are. We're going to keep it going. Again, it was a mental exercise to keep us focused and pivot to something. My son was home from school, and I pretty much put him in charge of it, and he had done a wonderful job with it. And it's everything we have in house that we use on our menu anyway. So we're just going to keep it going. It's been nice to have. It's not a, and I'm grateful for the handful of regulars that we have with it. It's been awesome. But we don't, if anything, we'll probably expand it in the colder months. As the dining population of the outside diners start to dwindle, we'll probably do more prepared foods and things like that and expand upon it, but I was very grateful to start it. It basically just started with a handful of employees who were freaking out that they weren't be able to get food, and we just said, okay, well, the one thing I do have at the moment is buying power, so let's just at least get ourselves settled and have our own avenue to where we can get, goods. And then we just pivoted and springboarded to the grocery aspect of it. And it's been a great thing to keep us focused. And in the earlier months, you know, when we first started, it was a huge help to keep the lights on.
Nice.
And I think as we move towards the winter months too, that's a natural segue.
Yeah.
When we can't serve outside anymore, is to kind of beef up our takeout. So more interesting things to eat, more, you know, for a group type stuff, things that are appealing for winter dining. And definitely, I mean, we haven't done the cocktail to go thing because there's so much to do when you're trying to open a restaurant in this time of COVID with all of the stuff that you need to buy to do takeout. And we bought twice as much different kinds of containers than we ever had before. Not to mention all the, you know, sanitizer and masks and gloves and all the stuff you need to keep everything super clean and COVID ready. But I think that would be the natural avenue to take, is to beef up all of our takeout operations for the winter.
All right, so I know we're getting close to 8 o'clock, so I think this is a good final question since we've had it asked a couple different ways. But what is the best thing that we customers that love our main restaurants can do to support restaurants during this time? Order takeout in off hours, order takeout on certain days, eat in. For those of us who are lucky enough to be retired and have time flexibility, how can we be your best customer?
Come often.
There you go.
Come often and be patient, I think, is probably the thing I would say the most, you know, whether it's takeout or dine in or whatever you're comfortable with. You know, I think all of us in the industry are happy to have you and you know, count it as a lucky thing to you know, to have you come in our door or take a bag or whatever it is. We're all kind of in this together. I mean, we all run different restaurants here, but I know we all kind of think about and face the same things from a day-to-day basis. So having the most amount of business is key to survival and success.
Yeah, buying gift certificates and cookbooks is also a great way to go.
Atta boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. and tip and just tip well. Just know that, you know, people who are out there serving you in a mask are under a lot of stress, and, you know, they're trying to make a living as well. So and again, people have been generous with the tips, but just keep it coming, you know, because that's the bulk of their income, and, you know, it reflects well and it makes them feel good, and, you know, it's a nice thing to do right now.
Okay, well, thank you to our panelists for being here with us tonight, and thank you to the readers for tuning in. Make sure you don't miss our next subscriber exclusive event, which will be on Wednesday, August 19th at 7 p.m. My colleague Rachel Ohm will sit down with local educators as they discuss the various strategies and plans for returning to school. We love to hear from you, so please give us your feedback about tonight's event in our survey. Have a great night, everybody, and thank you very much, panelists. I appreciate your participation.
Thank you.